Okay. My blue is telling me it's live. And I have the icon in the top left corner under the home icon that says live. There's usually about a 2-minute lag, so. Perfect. Members of council and members of the senior leadership team and of course members of the public, we apologize for the delay. We understand that our live stream has now been reinstated and we are ready to begin the meeting, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Madam Clerks. As usual, you solved the problem. Okay, Council, I see good afternoon, Council, SLT, and the viewing public. I see that we have quorum. I call this meeting October 5th, 2020 at 5:45 to order. And Madam Clerk, we have the approval of the agenda.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the agenda for the October 5th, 2020 regular meeting of Council be adopted. I do note that there are 2 addendum items that are requested to be added to the agenda, and they would be under agenda items 8.4.1 and 8.5.1. So I would be looking for a motion to add those.
And do we have a motion from a councillor to add these items as quoted by the clerk to the agenda? And I see Councillor Olson, and a seconder, please. Councillor Stewart, thank you.
Members of council, for your information, the second item being added was a very late receipt this afternoon. It's just for a request for support. I will send that out to you via email. It'll be faster that way than to receive it on the merged agenda. So I can call the vote on the additions to the agenda unless there are any further additions or changes to the agenda.
Nope.
Anything to add? Okay, hearing none. Councillor Hahn, to the addendum?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That carries. And now to the agenda as amended. I'll start again with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
That's carried as amended.
Next on the agenda is the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. After viewing the agenda, does any member of council have a pecuniary interest to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the COVID update from the Community Emergency Management Coordinator, Chief Limburner.
Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Senior Leadership Team, and the viewing public. Just a little update we have. As of today, Pelham's had a total case count of 44. We currently have 3 active cases in town, and there's 1 municipality in Niagara that has 0 active cases. The region picked up 11 new cases today. We're at 1,130 cases, 125 active, 940 resolved, and 65 deaths. Note that there hasn't been any hospital admissions in quite some time. So one of the issues that public health is having is our contract tracing. Up until a little while ago, every case that was coming through, they'd have 5 to 10 contact tracers to take care of, and that is boosted up with the volume, and they're dealing with 20 to 30 traces for every case. So our public health department is considerably overwhelmed at this point. Across the province, we're at 54,199 cases total, with 45,819 recovered, and our death count is 2,975. Countrywide, we're at 166,155 with 243 recovered. Deaths are 9,481. Case doubling time is 75 days. Our reproduction rate is 1. Our case close contact for infection spread is 61.4% close contact, 26.9 community spread, and it spread out 46.5% male and 53.5% female. And it's predominantly in our younger people. That's where the bulk of the cases are coming out of now. Province has made a few changes. They've they've allowed our local or regional health departments, health units to make changes or decisions without the province's approval. So if there's any hot spots or anything that's really localized, then the doctor of public health is able to make these recommendations and put in place. Province currently has tested over 4 million people. Testing, as far as testing goes, starting tomorrow, they're eliminating walk-in testing. It's going to be by appointment only, trying to control the crowds. And the province has made mandatory face coverings across the province now. So that's my update for today. If there's any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the Chief on his report? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. And this vote starts with Councillor Hildebrand, please.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the COVID update from the Department of Recreation, Culture and Wellness, Director Van Ravensway.
Ms. Van Ravensway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, you do have a report, an update report on the agenda this evening, although the report was prepared a week ago and things happen very quickly in my life, in our life here, with programming and rentals and procedures. So I just wanted to give council a update on how the week went and for your information. So basically we did start all of our programming this week, and each program did have attendance that was controllable. It was no issues. One of the main interesting programs was the public skating. And it was our first time that we were offering public skating, actually yesterday and Sunday. And we are able to allow up to 50 participants on the ice, and through a reservation process, similar to what we did with public swimming in the summer. So staff were accustomed to it, and many residents as well. And yesterday we had 48 residents reserve ahead of time by just phoning in and then arriving, and everything went very well. We were pleased with the turnout as well as the procedure. Now on Friday evenings, because we have 2 hours back to back, we are allowing 25 residents on the ice from 7:30 to 8:20, and then an additional 25 and another group of 25 beginning at 8:30 to 9:20 to accommodate. So other than that, the rentals are going well and programming is also. And that's my update for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Van Ravensway. Before I turn it to council, how is the attendance at the walking track going? How is that working out?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the walking track is mainly dependent on weather. When the sun is shining, we don't have as many participants, but I would say we would have between 10 and 15 daily. If it's a poor weather day, that goes up. So it just depends on the weather, as well as we do have regulars that do book their time on a regular basis. So they know every morning they'll be here at 8 o'clock and they can reserve their time. If we have we allow 25 on the track at a time. If we have, 15 reserved, we will also allow walk-ins. Although we encourage to give us a call to make sure that you're able to come in. No disappointments.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Any councillor have any questions to direct to the director? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. There are two resolutions with regard to this report, please. First by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that Council received the COVID-19 update presentation from the Van Ravensway, Director of Recreation, Culture and Wellness. That was the verbal presentation, and this vote starts with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that carries. Secondly is a motion by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-142, Recreation, Culture and Wellness, being the COVID-19 written report update for information. This vote starts with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion carries. Mr. Mayor, through you, the next item is the COVID update report from the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Cribbs.
Mr. CAO, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. This evening, my report to you is a little gloomier than is typically my wont. I regret to inform you that staff have been experiencing an increase in a level of incivility and disrespect, I would say, particularly of staff at the MCC. We've noticed this has gone up probably 2 weeks, maybe 3, but certainly the last 2. I feel quite confident in saying, essentially individuals challenging the need to wear masks or any social distancing, all the usual rules. And this, of course, is disconcerting at best for frontline staff whose jobs it is to enforce the rules that are placed upon us by health authorities. The chief outlined fairly well. So your senior leadership team has discussed the issue. Certainly we've had bylaws been made aware of it and been trying to be more present at the sort of busier hours. But from our perspective, it's important. We think we need to take some proactive steps. So at the next council meeting, we intend to present you with a document where the working title is Resident or Public Code of Conduct. But the notion is to create some sort of incentive and policy around civility and respect. We're working on developing some graphics to produce some posters to put up in that facility and presumably also the town library to sort of encourage and promote respect and fair dealing with each other. Everyone's under a lot of stress these days, of course, and I think we do understand that. But at the end of the day, we do have some obligations under the Occupational Health and Safety Act as an employer to provide safe workspace. But beyond that, I also think, quite importantly for the community, we want to keep enforcing the health rules in that facility. It's what allows us to keep that facility open. You know, just today in the Welland Tribune, there's a story from Port Colborne complaining about various different standards and what people are allowed to do in recreational facilities, particularly vis-a-vis hockey. And because Pelham's at the high end in all of Niagara, it's possible to come in and watch your children play. If they're the right age brackets, it's possible to come in and help your children change in a change room. It's possible, right? We're allowing public skates, etc. And we're able to do those things because we have this fabulous facility that we're very carefully managing with large, generally speaking, with wide open spaces and a dedicated staff that's really cleaning, very aggressively cleaning all the time. But we are able to offer these services. And that's been a wonderful thing. But to keep at that, I think we have to keep the standards up, and keep the standards up. We need people to respect those, and our staff deserve to be treated well too. So we're bringing you a policy document and some draft signage. That'll be at the next meeting. And obviously it'll be a relatively short, but there'll be a report alongside that for your consideration at that time. And that's kind of what we're working on at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. CAO. Any questions from council on that report? And I see the Councillor Hahn.
Through the mayor, just wondering, Mr. CAO, if you've reached out to AMO with regards to posters, graphics, and the like, because I can't imagine we're the only municipality of the 444 that's probably feeling a little bit of that pushback from the public at this point in time. Guessing there may be some assistance they can provide with graphics or that kind of thing, or maybe even the region. Has that been done?
Yes, in fact, we've found inspiration from a number of other governments that are further ahead or have already experienced more incivility or what have you. At any rate, there is some good messaging out there, and we need not reinvent the wheel.
Perfect.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other questions for Mr. CAO? Not seeing any. I turn to the clerk.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved, the Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. If there are no further questions, we'll start the vote with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Members of Council, we have the Chair of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee, B. Clark, present to provide information from the Pelham Active Transportation Committee.
Ms. Clark, welcome to Council tonight. We just met each other again on Friday, opening the great new paved walking path portion of the Steve Bauer Trail. Excellent facility, and again, great work by you and your committee. And we look forward to the next project you can bring to council. Ms. B, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to you and Councillor Olson for joining us on Friday. It was a good day for active transportation in Pelham, as I said that day. So I'm here this evening on behalf of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee to do two things: to provide you with an update and quick overview of the Active Transportation Committee's work, because we really haven't had the opportunity to do that since council's term began. But most importantly, we wanted to provide council with a high-level progress review of Pelham's Active Transportation Master Plan, which is quite extensive and available to the public on the Town of Pelham website. I think the review of the Active Transportation Master Plan with you this evening is quite timely. And I say that because I know that Council has recently completed a review of its own strategic plan for the town. And through that review, I'm sure you have acknowledged progress that's been made. You've identified areas that still require some attention. And you also discussed emerging issues that may alter or impact the strategic plan, such as the pandemic. So in much the same way, the Pelham Active Transportation Committee has reviewed the Active Transportation Master Plan. And with that review, we've taken stock. We've done a high-level review because there is a lot of detail in the plan. But we've essentially identified areas of progress, and there are a number. We've identified areas that still require some work, and some areas where we think, circumstances have changed and we likely don't need to proceed in the way that we might have envisioned just a couple of years ago. So before I delve into the actual master plan review, I just wanted to show you a couple of slides, and if we can go to the next slide, just to sort of give everyone an overview of the Active Transportation Committee. We were formed by council in 2008, and as you know, it is comprised primarily of citizen volunteers plus staff, and in this case, Jason Marr and Tolga Aiden from Public Works are generally the staff who work with us. We have Councillor Wink as our councillor liaison, and Regional Councillor Hewson joins us as well. We meet about 10 times a year, and you have approved our terms of reference, which allows us to develop priorities for you as part of the budget cycle. We advise you in matters, you and the Planning and Public Works departments in matters of policy development. And we also provide residents in our community to learn more about and advocate for active transportation in Pelham. Next slide. So as you know, I think what underpins all of our work is our regular outreach to residents. We seek their input so that we can in fact provide you with informed advice. Over the years, we have advocated for new sidewalks, trails, bicycle infrastructure, snow clearing of our sidewalks, and traffic calming. And of course, on Friday, we celebrated the paving of the section of the Steve Bauer Trail between Port Robinson Road and the Pelham boundary. We're the only community in Niagara that has achieved both bicycle-friendly status and walk-friendly designation, and we're very proud of that. We've completed an active transportation master plan, the first community in Niagara to have done so. Others have since followed suit. Our committee provides input for various public information sessions when developments are underway or being planned. And we're a founding member of Pelham Summerfest. We were there the first year with the active zone, and we plan to be there hopefully next year when we enjoy Pelham Summerfest again. We participate regularly in community events promoting active transportation, safety, and education, and this happens throughout the year, whether it's the home show, the farmers market, Summerfest, Christmas market. We now have our bike valet at the Thursday night events, and of course we hosted Slow Rolls last year. Next slide. We've also obtained numerous grants, generally from the provincial government, to support pedestrian and cyclist safety in Pelham. Our Cycling in Pelham map is just about sold out, and we're just going to reprint on that map right now. And we continue to collaborate with other active transportation committees, particularly the Welland and Thorold groups. We're very involved in school activities, supporting walk and bike to school activities and special events, trying to encourage children to walk and bike to school. We're a member of the Active Transportation Niagara Network, which meets several times a year, and I personally am a representative on the Regional Active Transportation Subcommittee. So back in, actually prior to 2016, we realized as a committee that we were making requests of council, but at times while they were all important, they maybe weren't as coherent as they needed to be, because we really didn't have a plan. We didn't have a way forward to really help us identify priorities and which activities or which infrastructure was the most pressing need in our community. Even though we heard from people anecdotally, we thought, well, we really need a more substantive plan to guide decisions so that council and staff have a better sense of of how we might plan active transportation for our community over a longer period of time. So in fact, consultants were hired and they worked with staff, they worked with us, and they did significant outreach in the community to get input from residents. And we developed this active transportation master plan, which was approved by council in 2016. And there are some long-term goals, short-term goals, medium-term goals, recognizing that plans like this have a longer shelf line than a typical strategic plan, which might be it, anything from 2 to 4 years. This plan is probably a 25-year plan in that it has some very long-term goals as the town develops further, but there are also short-term goals identified. There are priorities identified, and there's some sense of the budgets required to undertake some of these initiatives. Some are very low cost and some more significant. One factor, or one element of the plan rather, is that it requires regular review and assessment, just as your strategic plan, the town strategic plan does, so does this one. We need to know if we're making progress. We need to know, what has changed and how does this affect the plan. There's budget planning to be considered and how we integrate that into the planning cycles for the town. And quite honestly, we want to celebrate when we've met our milestones. And I think on Friday we did that with the reopening of the Steep Hour Trail, that section of the trail. So in 2018, we realized that, the active transportation master plan was a couple of years old, and it was about time to sit down and say, okay, how are we doing? And are we making progress? We knew that we were, but we wanted to be clear on that. So we agreed to work with staff to assist in the review, and we completed this review, in the early spring, but of course our lives changed then. So we put the final touches on it in June, and here we are tonight, knowing that we've completed a fair bit, progress has been made, but there's more work to be done. So I'm happy to go through the other document with you in just a moment, but I would say that as we reviewed the results of this progress review, there were a number of priorities that we saw jump out at us. Well, first of all, we're hoping that you'll accept this review as we presented it. It did have the input of staff as well as the input of all the Pelham Active Transportation Committee members. And there were 4 priorities that seemed to jump out at us. Number one, the completion of a sidewalk gap analysis. We keep hearing from residents that there are certain areas where sidewalks stop and start, and people have over time been asking for additional sidewalks or information about that. And we realized we didn't really have a good gap analysis. Maybe the problem is not very large at all. Maybe it's just 1 or 2 areas that keep being highlighted to us, or maybe it's more significant. And it's probably a good idea to take the time to do that analysis of the sidewalks in our more urban areas. Secondly, we often have requests for wayfinding and signage. I think you've heard me say this before, so we would like to see some movement on wayfinding and signage. We know we're somewhat, we're trying to stay in sync with the region because this has been a priority for the region, but we haven't heard recently, if the region is going to undertake this consulting work that they had promised. So we're betwixt and between, but we know that within our own community, we do need to move forward with wayfinding and signage. Thirdly, the Active Transportation Master Plan requires ongoing review, and we don't really have a systematic way of doing that. I think maybe we don't have the staff resources to do it. I'm not sure, but I know that the committee feels the plan needs to be reviewed regularly throughout the year, and maybe there are key points throughout the year that could be determined, but it can't just be left to sit on a shelf or sit on the web, and we just believe that we need this progress review on a regular basis. And then finally, we would like to ensure that capital budget allocations are included in long-term capital budget plans so that we can incrementally address the outlines in the items outlined in the Active Transportation Master Plan. We understand that resources are limited, but if we can begin planning with a longer term view, setting aside some funding over time for various elements identified in the plan, then we know we'll continue to make progress. I did want to highlight the names of the committee members because you should know that they volunteer a lot of hours to this committee, both in terms of our meetings and outside of our meetings. We have great expertise among the various committee members, and they all bring so much to our discussions and in turn, the information that we present to you. We certainly want to thank Diane Hewson and Councillor Wink for their support and their work with us because they add a lot to our discussions. And I'm happy to say that MIAC will have a representative for our committee again this year. He'll be joining us at the next meeting. We're looking forward to meeting him. And of course, to the staff that we work with most closely, Tolga Aiden and Jason Marr, we really appreciate the support that they provide. So to you, I would say thank you for your support and participation and encouragement. A day like Friday really boosts the spirits of all of us, and the committee members are appreciative of your support. To staff, as I've mentioned, we always appreciate their support and guidance. And finally, the thing I think that makes the difference for our committee is the fact that the residents of Pelham are never shy to tell us what their interests are, their ideas, their concerns, what things they love, things that they would like to see changed. And we're always open to their input. We haven't had the chance this year because of the pandemic to be out in the community as we usually are, but people are addressing their concerns to us by email, and we're very appreciative of that. So the other document we have is the actual review that we prepared of the Active Transportation Master Plan. And I wasn't, in recognizing 10 minutes is not very long, I wasn't prepared to go through that document with you, but I can certainly, it's a simple document. It outlines the 4 main areas that we reviewed, the priority actions, the planning that's required, the processes that were suggested in the Active Transportation Master Plan, and finally the promotion that was recommended in the plan. And as you can see in that document, and I know you have a copy of that, we did an analysis as to the type of progress that we've made and where we perhaps still need to do more. So I'm happy to leave it at that in the interest of time, but obviously would be, Mr. Mayor, happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you for a great presentation. Before I turn it over to Council, I can't agree with you more that the work that you have done on that master plan, it is too good a document to sit on a shelf and be forgotten. Hopefully you and your committee will continue to bring aspects of it to this council and continue to update it as needed. I know this council, when we hear a project has the backing of your committee, we all perk up and say, "Oh, this is something that the community really needs or wants." So we appreciate anytime you bring something to council. This council really appreciates the work that has gone into that. And also on the at the region, you're right. They seem to be, and let's be fair. COVID-19 has thrown all the timetables out the window. I know they made a real nice presentation. I guess it was almost a year ago, and everybody was very gung-ho, and then I don't think we've heard from them in the last 7 or 8 months. So I'm sure the plans are there, just a matter of priorities in the pandemic season. With that being said, any questions, comments from any members of council? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive the delegation from B. Clark, Chair of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee, for information. And this vote starts with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Members of council, the next item on the agenda, through you, Mr. Mayor, is the adoption of minutes. And there is a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C15 2020, council minutes of September 21st, 2020, and SC13, special council minutes of September 21st, 2020. If you'd like to call for errors or omissions.
After reading the minutes mentioned, does any councillor have any comments as to errors or omissions on these minutes? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. I'll start the vote with Councillor Hahn,
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand,
Yes.
Councillor Olson,
Yes.
Councillor Stewart,
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Mr. Mayor, the next item is a request to lift consent agenda items.
And does any councillor, upon looking at the consent agenda items, wish to lift an item? Madam Clerk, I don't see any intent.
Seeing none, the consent agenda item, the consent agenda resolution as follows. On a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the October 5th, 2020 council agenda be received and recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. Firstly is the presentation of the recommendations arising from the special committee of the whole meeting, the budget open house of September 23rd. Then the minutes of that meeting as well. The action correspondence items, the request for a letter of support from the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 613, and that is with regard to their application for a New Horizons for Seniors Program funding for building renovations and accessibility upgrades, and asking that council endorse the request and provide a letter of support. And the other item that was added late this afternoon is a letter from the Community Support Services of Niagara Community Outreach to receive their correspondence, which outlines their sale of greeting card fundraiser, and they're seeking the support of the Mayor's office through social media and photo opportunities through the Office of the Mayor. To you, Mr. Mayor, for any discussion on the consent agenda items.
After hearing the consent agenda items, does any councillor have any discussion points they wish to raise? Councillor Olson.
Through you, Your Worship, I want to make a comment about the application or the letter from the Royal Canadian Legion, and make note of the fact that the Legion is beginning their drive to deliver another 7,000 meals to our seniors, starting with Thanksgiving dinner on Saturday. So I wanted to make note of that and speak in support of this of their request to make some modifications to the building there, and I can assure you that President Tony's doing a great job there, and this money will be well spent and it'll be well deserved if they can have this, if they can achieve this grant for the improvement to their building. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Olson. As you have pointed out, the money is to improve their facilities, to serve the community even better. Great folks down at the 613 for sure. Any other comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll start the vote with Councillor Hildebrand, please.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes?
That's carried unanimously, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is staff reports requiring action. Item 10.2.1, sanitary sewer diversion at Summersides and Station Street. On a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0137 and that Council approve the additional funds required for the costs associated with the sanitary sewer diversion from existing dollars in capital account WST 0420, and that Council approve the amendment to the current purchase order with Beam Excavating Incorporated to include the additional work to complete the sanitary sewer diversion project in the amount of $44,000 excluding HST. To you, Mr. Mayor, for questions and comments by the Council.
Well, thank you, Madam Clerk. Before I turn this over to council discussion, there is one or two comments I'd like to make on this report. Number one, I was very disappointed that this report came to staff or came to council as an 11th hour subject. I can't see any reason why this kind of report wasn't brought to us several months ago. I don't think this council appreciates being handed something on the 11th hour and making it sound like it's a do or die situation. Number two, I was very disappointed that the report suggests that we should deviate from our purchasing policy. When this first came to council, right after we had taken office, probably about 2 years ago, this same situation arose that we were asked to approve spending a budget item without what we considered to be proper going out with an RFP. And that is one thing this council refuses to do. I'm speaking for council. I'm hoping discussion will bear me out on this. We made it quite clear then, and we hopefully will reiterate tonight that we want at least the appearance of at least 3 quotes on an RFP. If we don't get 3, if we get 2, then so be it. But this council is all open for transparency and for making sure that the price that we are spending is indeed the best price in the community. I will now open this discussion up to any council members. Have any comment to make on this? Councillor Hildebrand?
I'd like to consider the motion in 2 separate components, please.
And would you like the clerk? Well, before we read that motion, Councillor, is it all right if we go to other comments first?
Yes.
Okay. Councillor Wink, did I see your hand?
Yeah, the only comment I was going to make is I concur with Councillor Hildebrand to divide the motion.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other comments? I don't see any, so I'll ask the clerk to how we proceed.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, a request to divide is only by a request. So I will take the vote then we'll divide the motion between the 2 action paragraphs. So we can begin with the motion, be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0137 and that Council approve the additional funds required for the costs associated with the sanitary sewer diversion from the existing dollars in capital account WST 0420. So, Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to call for discussion on that component of the motion only.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Discussion on this part of the motion. Any councillor have a discussion? Yes, Councillor Wink.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, obviously it's apparent that this work has to get done, that it's got to be done as soon as possible. And need to make it happen through the existing dollars in the capital account, and I'm fully supportive of this part of the motion.
Yes. Thank you for that, Councillor. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. I'll ask the clerk to call the vote.
This starts with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
So that carries. And the next motion that is before council is that council approve the amendment to the current purchase order with Beam Excavating Incorporated to include the additional work to complete the sanitary sewer diversion project in the amount of $44,000 excluding HST. To the council for amendment or discussion.
And before I turn it over to the council, councillors, perhaps we can hear from the CAO on the likelihood in case the council does not pass this. Could you outline the steps going forward?
There we go.
Sorry, Your Worship, can you rephrase that? I'm not entirely clear.
Oh, I'm sorry. If this is indeed turned down by council, what do you foresee the steps going forward? Oh, well, I see Director of Public Works wants to speak to this. Director Jason?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to cut my boss off, the CAO. So I'm not sure if he has any remarks ahead of mine, but I definitely can fill you in on the process.
Okay, thank you.
With respect to the technical aspects and how we move forward with procurement.
Then the only comments I'll make is that I would echo Councillor Wink's. What's critical here is that the work get done in a relatively timely fashion, but there probably are other mechanisms. We can reasonably proceed in the more traditional fashion, which is, I believe, the likely alternative to the suggestion of sole sourcing.
Director, please.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the process that would be undertaken, this would be a tender, considering that it would be over $25,000. So we would go to tender on this. We would prepare a tender document through our engineer to get the specifications and tender document in place. Then there would be a 3-week period for the tendering process to take place, at which time, once the bids were received, if we were within the approved budget of the account, then we would make the award to the successful contractor to complete the work. So the tendering process will most likely delay the project by 5 to 6 weeks at a minimum, but definitely something that if this council wishes, definitely we can make that provision and move forward on that basis.
Great. And because we're at the first week of October, a 5-week delay puts us middle of November. Definitely still good weather to complete the project, in your opinion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there's sufficient time to complete the project. The one thing that we would want to make sure is completed by snowfall or at the end of December when the asphalt plants close. We want to make sure that we reinstate the roadway, since that is a highly used intersection, high volumes of traffic, and we would want to have that paved and reinstated, those trenches and the areas around that intersection, so that we're prepared for maintaining the roadway in the winter. That would be priority. There are also works that are scheduled to take place, which this council approved through Beam Excavating to do intersection work and intersection improvements at this intersection. So that work, the scope of that work was additional curb work, realigning of some of those roads, because if we recall, I believe we came forward with a report to put a roundabout in, which was denied. So there's some geometric issues and safety issues, concerns with that intersection, and Beam Excavating does have an outstanding purchase order to complete those surface works. So most likely with, if this work is tendered, we would get the sanitary sewer diversion done, hopefully get the asphalt reinstatement completed, and then those surface works would be pushed off, I would think, till next spring.
Okay. Thank you for that, Director of Public Works. Any other questions, comments? Is that you, Councilor Wink, or are you adjusting?
Yes, no,
Okay.
through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry. So once this is awarded, how long does the scope of work take for this project?
Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would expect that this work, the installation of sanitary sewers, would take approximately 2 weeks from start to finish.
Okay, so what you're saying is if we go through the RFP process, we still do have time to get this work done?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, that's correct. We will have time to get the sanitary sewer diversion completed, and hopefully it's finished before the asphalt plants close and we can get the roadway reinstated with asphalt. The remaining works that are currently under a purchase order with Beam Excavating to rework the intersection and make the safety improvements would be delayed until next spring.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments before we have the clerk call the vote? Then I will, Councilor Hildebrand?
I'd like to make a motion, please. I'd like a motion that the motion be amended to strike the paragraph in entirety and replace it with the following. That council direct staff to follow the town's purchasing policy for the selection of the successful contractor to complete the sanitary sewer diversion project at Summersides Boulevard and Station Street.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Any discussion on the motion present? Oh, first of all, we need a seconder. Sorry. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Hahn, I see. Thank you. And now any discussion, questions concerning the motion put forward by Councillor Hildebrand? Councillor Hildebrand.
Just as a general comment going forward, I'd like to, as a councillor, recommend that third-party independent peer review oversight must be a requirement and be established for future.
Thank you for that, Councillor. We will possibly have a debate in the future on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not seeing any other questions, I now turn to the clerk.
So members of council, this is a motion to amend the second paragraph of that original motion, and it's brought by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Hahn, that the motion be amended by striking the motion in its entirety and replacing it with the following, and that would just be that second paragraph. That council direct staff to follow the town's purchasing policy for the selection of the successful contractor to complete the sanitary sewer diversion project at Summersides Boulevard and Station Street. With no further discussion on this amendment, the vote will start with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Carried. So now we will vote on the motion as amended. And I'll call the vote in the same order. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that's carried. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any listed unfinished business or new business, so we will move to presentation and consideration of bylaws. I have a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaw, do now read a first, second, and third time and pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaw. Bylaw 4282 of 2020 being a bylaw to authorize the sale of town-owned lands to Lally Homes Limited or successors in title, the lands being described on Schedules A and B appended to the bylaw, and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute all necessary documents to complete this transaction. Are there any questions or comments with regard to the bylaw, Mr. Mayor?
Any questions from any councillor? Not seen any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And this vote will start with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries for the bylaw. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is motions and notices of motion. You will recall that at the last meeting, Councillor Hahn presented a notice of motion, and she has prepared and included on the agenda the motion by her and seconded by Councillor Hildebrand, and I believe she would like to present the motion at this time.
Through the mayor, yes, I would. Thank you, Clerk. So this is a bit of a long one, so get comfortable. I think it's fairly self-explanatory too, but if you have questions, certainly shoot when I'm done. Be it resolved that the Town of Pelham Town Council endorse the following resolutions as matters of highest priority. Whereas the Town of Pelham is a municipality of fewer than 18,000 persons, and whereas the town has already spent in excess of $100,000 in legal and professional fees in developing a municipal cannabis, including industrial hemp, regulatory framework, and is bearing the cost of 7 separate proceedings against the framework before the Superior Court of Justice, the Normal Farm Practices Protection Board, and or the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, or LPAT, which are currently estimated to cost the taxpayer over $3,000 to litigate. And whereas hundreds of residents have suffered ongoing adverse effects, particularly light and odor pollution, from cannabis facilities in the town, and the town will have to incur ongoing enforcement costs in order to have any hope of mitigating these adverse effects. And whereas the Town of Pelham is not the only municipality in Niagara or in Ontario that has suffered these adverse effects from these cannabis facilities, which operate on an industrial scale. And whereas at present, residents of the Town of Pelham are on track to pay 100% of the costs of civil cases that are presidential in nature and will impact neighboring communities, all of Niagara, and ultimately have a provincial impact. And now, therefore, Pelham Town Council formally requests that the region of Niagara seek party status in the various LPAT proceedings that have been initiated by Woodstock Biomed Inc., CanTrust Holdings, and Redecan Farm as against the Town of Pelham. As a party, the region can offer direct evidence, planning expertise, and testimony in support of the Town of Pelham's recently amended official plan and zoning bylaw, which were adjusted with the approval of regional staff. And further, Pelham Town Council requests that Member of Parliament, Provincial Parliament, Sam Oosterhoff, be requested to champion the town's plight with the provincial government so as to result in the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing seeking party status in the various LPAT proceedings that have been initiated by Woodstock Biomed, CanTrust, and Redecan Farm as against the Town of Pelham, and a financial contribution from the provincial government towards the town's litigation costs in recognition of the broader provincial public interests being represented. And further, that Niagara West MP Dean Allison be requested to champion the Town of Pelham's plight in the legislature and further pressure Health Canada to satisfy its own obligations with respect to enforcement of standards and regulations as they pertain to odor emissions from cannabis facilities, including providing a financial contribution toward the town's litigation and enforcement costs in recognition of the broader public interest being presented. And further, that Niagara West MP Dean Allison be requested to obtain a clear and satisfactory answer from Health Canada as to why, after years since CanTrust Holdings has acknowledged growing cannabis in a manner that contravened its license, no penalty or fine has been formally levied, nor have charges been laid. And further, Pelham Town Council formally requests that the City of Welland and the City of Thorold each be asked to voluntarily contribute $15,000, which represents a 5% of the estimated litigation costs, towards defense of the aforementioned legal actions, as Pelham has received complaints from residents of both these municipalities pertaining to light and or smell associated with the industrial production of cannabis. Whew. Amen.
Okay, thank you for that, for bringing this motion forward, Councillor Hahn. Any questions, comments on this motion? Councillor Stewart.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hahn. In the beginning, in the resolution, I believe that you said be currently estimated to cost the taxpayer $30,000 to litigate, but in print it says $300,000. I just want to be sure what the intent was.
Oh, it's 300,000. I said 30?
I think that's what I heard, yes.
Oh, 300,000. No, that's 300,000 going forward.
Yes, it makes it much more important. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess I have one question perhaps to the CAO / lawyer for the town, or as a lawyer. So you obviously have, you and the clerk have read this motion, and you're happy with this motion going forward, sir?
Your Worship, this morning I had cause to read a complaint was forwarded to me from a resident of the City of Welland complaining about cannabis odor from a cannabis producer here in the town of Pelham. So I have firsthand experience that there are, in fact, complaints from residents of neighboring municipalities. It is true that the town is shouldering all of the financial burden associated with all of this litigation, what is currently 7 separate actions. And one assumes that this will in fact set precedent. And as things are currently structured, all of that cost has to come from the levy. There are no other alternative sources of revenue to support this. So if any of these actions bear fruit, and Councillor Hahn has considered, as best I can tell, every other order of government that would reasonably be involved, and it's a fairly wide and in-depth approach, I think those are reasonable requests. Whether those who receive them think they're reasonable or not is beyond my jurisdiction, but I think in principle, 17,000 people don't necessarily have to bear the whole fight for the entire province. But that is what's happening as we speak.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, thank you for that opinion, Mr. CAO. Any other comments, questions on this motion? Obviously, Councillor Hahn, if it bears fruit somewhere at some level of government, it would be nice to graciously accepted by this council. That's for sure. And motion at least makes other levels of government stand up and take notice that Pelham, like every other municipal government, is unfortunately having to bear the financial burden of what's commonly known as mistakes made at the federal level. So again, thank you for bringing this motion forward. Again, I ask for any other questions or comments. Not seen any. I guess Councillor Hildebrand, you did second this motion. Did you wish to speak to it or not?
Well, Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I'm a supporter, obviously, by seconding it, but I'm more than a supporter because I'm on the CCC. And I think the provincial government and the regional government and our neighboring communities need to step up to the plate, because this is a huge cost to one municipality, and this is precedent setting. And I believe between the staff and the CCC and the region and all those who are involved in establishing all the guidelines and the bylaws, very important work was done. And we need to come to the aid of the costs by any means possible. And I think asking for money is acceptable in my view in this case.
Thank you, Councillor. One last time, any other comments or questions on the motion? Then I will turn to the clerk, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and just to clarify that the amount is over $300,000 to litigate, so that's what council will be voting on. This vote starts with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is the motion to move into closed session. And I do have a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider a matter under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act as follows. Municipal Act Section 239(2)E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality, and that's with regard to our file L0219-2019. And secondly, the Municipal Act Section 239(2)B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and there is one item. Through you, Mr. Mayor, for the vote. Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. Members of council, if you'll just remain on the call, we do need to stop the live streaming and recording, and we will let you know when we're ready to resume.